Hey, good morning, listeners and viewers, and my dear friend Jaff.
Good morning, Amar.
Are you okay?
Yeah, good.
How are you feeling?
Yeah, good, good, good. Had a little bit of a flu from last week, but yeah, I just had to try and relax for a few days. But it's all good. It's part
Oh,
of that.
well done.
Yeah, it's part of that whole winter thing, isn't it? There seem to be quite a few people that have got coughs and colds at this time of the year.
Yeah, there's a lot of it going around, is
Mm,
what it is.
yeah,
And yeah, it's it's a interesting time of year. I obviously missed you last Friday, like I always do, whenever you're not around, and was equally concerned. But other than that, good week is it's Black Friday, isn't it? Is it Black Friday?
is it Black Friday today? Is it?
Yeah, not
Uh,
Black-eyed Friday,
oh
Black
no,
Friday.
no, no! It's not Black-eyed Friday.
No,
Black-eyed
it's Black
Friday.
Friday.
Black
Uh,
Friday. Black-eyed Friday, the traditional Black-eyed Friday, it's kind of the last Friday before Christmas, isn't it?
Yeah, so that's the 21st as we go out for lunch
Is
on the
that when it is?
21st.
21st, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so we'll be out for lunch then,
Yeah.
and yeah, see what the day brings. Anyway, it's Black Friday, lots of sales, lots of promotion, lots of discount, is what it is. Are you doing anything?
Nah, I just don't. I just, to be honest, I've not actually bought anything for such a long time. I don't see sometimes I don't see the point, Amar, when you keep on buying more
Stuff.
clothes, but then
Yeah,
you need to actually take away some old clothes to buy some new clothes because where are you supposed to put it all?
yeah.
It doesn't make any
Um,
sense when you got no spaces in your wardrobe. I know that you've got like multiple walk-in dressing rooms and all of that stuff, but not all of us have those luxuries. I've got a little bloody cupboard. Like,
what do you think I've got? It's but you're right. It's a really I've been reflecting on this topic for a little bit of time, both from people talk about organization, right? And anyway, let's start the show. You're listening to Amar and
Jaff.
live on our weekly radio show right here on Spice FM.
Each week we bring some views, news, and one or two clues from the business world.
Yeah. Asian Business Connections aims to connect, support, and promote the Asian and wider communities.
And we'll be talking shop quite literally, not just corner shops where they start a business, have an existing business, or you just want to talk business. We can help.
We can't help, and we do help. Yeah, it's a interesting time, is what it is. Anyway, coming back to organization, um, and when people think or talk about organization, they think about making something happen or a business, right? An organization is a business. It's a nization of organs, is what it is, and it's the same when it comes to you preparing for something, but actually at home, organizing your life is a job. There are people who will come along and help you organize your life. Now,
Hold on.
I've been
Sorry, Amar.
wondering,
Did the organization word come from organs?
that's
Is that
maybe,
what you said?
and that's what I said, yeah, but it
What?
must do. Well, it must do, mustn't
Really?
it?
What?
Well,
Organizing
okay.
your organs?
No, I didn't say organizing your organs, but the way the word or it's Latin, isn't it? It's all of these words. And the word organization emerged in the English language in the mid 15th century. It originally meant act of organizing and came from the Middle French organisaton. The French term came directly from medieval Latin organization name. In 1873, it assumed the meaning system, establishment. The word organization is derived from the Latin organum, meaning instrument or organ. So, yes, it
Wow.
is exactly that. So that was a great illustration from me to demonstrate where the word came from, and it's the Latin term organum is related to the Greek organon. So yeah, it's all about organs. So where's your organ, Jeff?
Mhm.
Anyway, coming back to the point of this conversation is organization of life is there are people out there that will help you do that. And I've been thinking what tends to happen with any of these jobs in the house is you tend to start with this big ambition of, right, I'm going to go and sort out all of my wardrobes. And I've only got two. And all of a sudden I'll start with one and I'll pull something out and I'll look at it and I'll go, oh, I remember wearing that in 1964. Oh, actually, I paid, it was good quality or whatever it is. And then you end up putting it back and you
Yeah.
don't wear it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you don't wear it for another 5 years or whatever it is. And what tends to happen um, is you go through phases of wearing the same clothes
Mm.
forever.
Yeah.
It's like winter's come. Oh well, I've got this jacket, and I'm going to put that jacket back on. Well, there's nothing wrong with that jacket, but then you'll be out. So last week, you're talking about buying things. There were some real bargains last week.
Mm.
I was like, oh my gosh, really? And we all love a good bargain. Um, and I bought some stuff, and then afterwards, I'm like sat there thinking, yeah, but I do need to get rid of some old stuff.
Mm.
Um, but then when I look at the old stuff, I'll go, oh well, actually, I'm going to wear that again. And the reason for all of this is it takes a lot of courage to start disposing of things.
Mm.
And whether you've got one wardrobe or two like me or 24 like you know, the ideal scenario and what you need to do is how do you eat an elephant? You eat an elephant one bite at a time, right? An elephant's too big to eat like that. And so you need to just trunk, ears, whatever. Anyway, I wouldn't recommend eating an elephant, and I'm not suggesting that's what you need. Anyone should be doing. My point is, it's an analogy. So I'm just being clear here. For all, I'm an elephant lover as well, and you need to just be careful what you say anywhere this day and age.
Can't believe you.
But
Can't believe you. You're telling people that you're eating an elephant. What was that lovely, cool, like Dandy the elephant? Is it the Dandy the elephant? Or just
Randy the
like
elephant.
you, just
What?
just
Huh?
like you chopping the elephant up and eating it for your dinner.
No, I didn't say I'd chop it up, did I? I said bite, is what I said. Um. Anyway, I wonder if people do eat elephants. Do you think
That
people eat
wouldn't
elephants?
surprise us. I mean, it'll be a lot of thick skin though to get through by the time you get to the juices and stuff.
Mm. I had some camel in
Hmm.
Saudi Arabia. I had
Nice.
camel.
How was that?
Yeah, it's quite
Camel
tasty.
milk and stuff is supposed to be good for you.
I mean, now all of these. So I was in Saudi. I flew to Saudi, and we've got a guest coming on, Karl Beckett, around about 1:30. So we'll talk about him and we'll get him on and we'll interrogate him a little bit. But yeah, I flew to Saudi on Sunday, and I left here and I've charted my journey because I actually decided I'm going to drive to the airport. But I drove from our new international trade station at Airview Park, like pulled up outside, jumped in the car, drove to the airport, 2 minutes, like literally 2 minutes, door to door, into the car park, parked in the short term car park, short stay, walked across the road, 15 seconds from where I was parked to the terminal, and I was doing hand luggage only, and I
Mm-hmm.
was through into the lounge, sat doing work. I'd gone from air view through security, checked in, through to the other side, all in 19 minutes.
Mm.
19 minutes I'd gone from in a car. It was just like extraordinary. And anyway, flew to Dubai, and the uh, time there to get to Riyadh, it's an hour, but it's like that's the layover. It's always really tight. Anyway, managed to get on it, get in it, flew to Riyadh, flew through the other side, got met by the government. They and they're like, it's if you're doing something official, like I done that a couple of weeks back, they bring you through a separate bit where there isn't any queues, there isn't anything. There's people
Mm.
got your luggage and they've stamped your passport and you're through into a lounge where they sit you down, welcome you to Saudi, and then drove to the hotel.
Mm.
Anyway, um, why am I talking about this? Because I went and spoke at the World Investment Conference, and it was like every minister, every big investor from all over the world. But then on the Monday night, I went to the date exhibition, Jeff,
Mm-hmm.
the date exhibition.
Right.
Not where I found like lots of women, like dates
Mm-hmm.
is what it was.
Okay.
And it was funny because when I got the message through date exhibition, it actually spells date sex inhibition.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, that's brilliant. Anyway, that aside, where they didn't find that funny when I pointed it out to them at all. Um, there was I was welcomed as a VIP to this dates exhibition, and I went through the history of dates. And the reason why I'm mentioning it is because you mentioned milk, camel milk,
Mm.
right? And historically, humanity survived on dates and camel milk.
Mm.
That's all they ate and drank
Yeah.
in those regions.
Mm-hmm.
It was like predating like all of the other agricultural influences.
Yeah.
And the history of the palm tree and the history of dates was just extraordinary. And they
Mm.
had a dates museum, and and they've created so many products from dates now,
Mm-hmm.
and they had a competition, the world's top chefs there
Right.
creating dishes with dates,
Right.
and Domino's Pizza were there launching two pizzas that had date or date syrup on them.
All
And
right.
I was like, date syrup, Domino's Pizza. Like,
Mm.
what's that about? And it was really interesting because I then said, actually, it's not dissimilar to pineapple. And loads of people have pineapple on their pizza.
Mm.
Um, anyway, it wasn't necessarily for me, but the crowds. I mean, there was thousands of people. This was a family affair, and dates are not a million, £1 billion industry in Saudi.
Mm.
And if you imagine every certain Muslim all over the world
Mm.
eats dates,
Mm.
but it was just the difference of the dates. And there's a particular date that was a black date that's produced only in Medina.
Mm.
And they've tried planting it anywhere else and it doesn't colour
Is that
or
not
isn't
the prophet's?
created.
There's a
Sorry?
date. There's a date that the prophet himself grew the
Yeah,
tree
that's
and
one of
planted.
the, that's it. That's
Is that
it
one?
from Medina. Yeah, yeah. Anyway, the point of all of this is that there's so a PIF company. So last year when I went to a camel milk producer, manufacturer, and PIF then bought them out. Um, PIF have bought, like, they're now buying. They've got their own cola because of everything that went on with Pepsi and everything else. They've brought out their own brand, and you can imagine the queues for that were just like all of the queues for all of these producers were. I'm like sat there going, and people were just going crazy for all of these items. It was mad. And one of the individuals that I met who's found a new grain in the desert, only grows in the desert, and he's patented, and it's like it's he's making different breads, different sort of things, food items with it. But people were just going crazy for some of this stuff. It's just anyway, it was brilliant. It was brilliant. And then on the Tuesday, I done my speech with the Minister of Austria. She was there. And here's the thing, I've got a video of her. And I thought, I'm going to record this. I recorded videos all the way through. And she was the Minister for Austria, Jaff, came to Saudi in 2021, resigned in 2022, and now lives in Saudi. And she's white.
And she's resigned from her position, has she?
Yeah, and went to work in Saudi. And I was like, well, why? Why would you do that? She's going, it's just amazing here. It's like so welcoming. It's the world of opportunity. I mean, she's working on the board of Aramco and whatever else. So I dare I say she's getting looked after. But in any event, this misconception, this misapprehension that, Saudi is a bad place and the people there are bad and, they just got loads of money and whatever else. Far from it. It is just brilliant. It is one of the best places, if not the best place outside of the Northeast, obviously, that I've visited. And it's like the opportunities there are just crazy, crazy. And actually, everyone needs to go.
Mama, what was the weather like at this time of the year?
Oh, lovely. So nice. It was really warm. It's like 30 degrees. I mean, I'm in the hotel, I'm in conferences, you don't spend that much time outside. So 2 or 3 times on the Monday and the Tuesday, I went and stood outside just to look at the sun and feel the sun, because it's like, I'm not going to feel it for a long time. That's the thing. But yeah, it's and the World Investment Conference, Jaff. Everyone was talking about the Saudi 2030 vision. It was all about opportunity. The word opportunity, 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 just constantly reinforced. And the amount of people that I met from all over the world. And it was funny, some of the ambassadors, one of this Abdul Aziz Toure, the deputy ambassador from the Embassy of the Republic of Sierra Leone, studied at Newcastle College.
Oh, really?
And it was like there were so many people who that I've met who were like, oh, we'd love to, like, from Australia, from from the World Bank, from World Free Zones, from I met the UN, is what I did, and and UNRWA as well. And yeah, this was the former Minister of Austria, board member, Aramco Digital. Anyway, so many brilliant individuals. I spoke and caught up with the Minister for Investment at Saudi, His Excellency, and various other ministers, and people were like, and I'm like, oh, let's get a picture, let's get a selfie. And everyone else was like, what? You're asking like one of the princes, one of the crowd people to just take a selfie. I was just like, yeah, I know, yeah, that's the thing. So it's like, um, and then people remember that, don't they, as well? So I've got like loads of connections, loads of people to follow up with, loads of people who actually want to come over here as well, because I was just selling what the Northeast has to offer. Um, and then um, there was a big, you spoke about this, but in the museum, Dates Museum, and some of the food that was demonstrated and showcased was all from the Levant, Jack. And I
Mm.
was just thinking about you.
Mhm.
I've taken lots of pictures, I've got lots of recipes, I've got like lots of numbers. It's because it was like some of the food there is so tasty. There's a particular dish called Jishan from the Levant, and it's like what we would call like kitchery. You know
Oh,
what kitchery is,
yeah,
Jeff?
yeah, 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 of course.
Yeah, yeah. So Jishan is like kitchery. It's a bit sloppier, but it's still made with like that type of ricey type of substance, like a risotto-y type
Yeah.
of thing. It's a bit creamier. It is so good. And I thought, right, I've got the recipe. I'm gonna start practicing it. I'm gonna start making it myself, and uh, and then I'll come and do a guest cookery night down with my dude friend. I'll get down with the dudes and that. Anyway, tell me what's happening, Jeff. How's football?
Well, football was a bit of a yeah, it was awful. It was an awful match on Monday. We had high hopes that we're gonna kind of beat West Ham and get right up there in the mix. And we started off really really well, and but then they had a went to the other end for the first time in 12 minutes, 30 minutes, and then they went and scored, and we tried to kind of get the equalizer, we couldn't, and then they scored another goal. So it was a bad result, really bad result. We didn't play the worst, but it was a very bad result. So let's see where we are, Mark, tomorrow playing Crystal Palace away, and then it's a big one on Wednesday against Liverpool at home.
Is it Wednesday or Tuesday?
I think it's Wednesday, next Wednesday.
Is it?
I think
I don't
so.
know why. Why? Oh yeah, I think you're right. It's the fourth. Yeah. So it was the one I was going to sponsor because it's so funny. So Yusuf says to me, he says, "Dad, do you know when they ask when they come around like where we sit and they go, is there any away fans?" He's going to say, "I'm going to put my hand up." And I'm going to say, I'm going to throw you out the window is what I'm going to do, Yusuf, if you do that. But anyway, obviously not. There's an element of jest here. I don't do anything like that. And yeah, it's because it's like an 8 o'clock. It's just horrific. A lot of the timings we've got for a lot of our games, they are just
Yeah,
like the worst.
I think that's not it. It's a 7:30 kickoff. I'm on.
Oh, well, okay. It's still a Wednesday night, isn't it? As
Yeah,
opposed to
but I think unfortunately, it sometimes there is midweek games, and that's the only time you can really start them. Really, it's got
why?
to.
Why wouldn't you start them at like 6 o'clock?
It's difficult, isn't it? Because people are finishing work, they have to get home, get changed, come out. So I think it is historically always been 7:30. Um, but I mean, how many of our games are actually on a 3 o'clock on a Saturday? There's not many these days.
Hmm.
They're either at 12, they're either at 5. I think it's not a bad thing because they're getting selected for TV.
Hmm.
But the traditional 3 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon matches, they are less and less and less these days.
Fair enough. Yeah, it's um, it's sad to see there was such high hopes for Newcastle. I'm out there in Saudi raving about it, talking about Newcastle. You have to go and watch a game, and then that, and it was like, oh, that's such a um, downer on. But the town's thriving now, isn't it, Jeff? Is it not starting to pick up?
Yeah, I think it always will at this time of the year. I think definitely. There's a lot more people around, and it's interesting, isn't it, Omar? Because there's been moments, in the summer and stuff. It was absolutely dead. You would never see a soul in town, which was worrying. But then it's quite the reverse at the moment because of Christmas, I guess. There's a lot more people out and about. There's the markets that are there in the city centre, the Christmas markets, and there's always people around Christmas markets. The shoppers are going to be out, the sales are going to be on, and Phoenix windows are on and stuff like that. So there is a lot more activity in the city centre at the moment. And that'll last probably until New Year's Eve. And then from the 1st of January, which is only 4 weeks away again, it'll probably have another lull again. So yeah, it's just that it's obviously that busy time of the year, and it is reflected with the footfall in the city centre.
Fair enough. And yeah, I think there was lots going on. We because Newcastle United are doing quite a bit as well, aren't they? As in, so we were fortunate to go to. They had an event a couple of weeks back at the. In fact, it was just last week, wasn't it? It wasn't a couple of weeks back. Last Wednesday, they had an event at Phoenix.
Oh yes.
And that was it was unique. We took the family, kids, the wife, and probably a bit late for the kids and whatever else. But it was just a different thing. And point of that is there was quite a lot going on in the town. They've got the rides, they've got like the green bit, they've got a whole host of, and obviously the stack. How is the stack doing, Jeff?
I think generally it's doing really well, Amar. There's always queues there, and the match days are very, very busy. I think it's just the non-match days, and I don't think they're okay. It's certain time zones, Amar, like 3 o'clock on a Monday afternoon. There's no match. Who's going to go there? So there's certain times which is where it's not as busy, but that's just normal, isn't it? I think it fulfills the need for that to be a fan zone before people go to the matches, after the matches, and they do lots of other things during other times as well. So I think it's a designated fan zone which Newcastle have not had, and I'm presuming that away matches, when the fans are there, that everyone's going there, and it's another place for the fans to get together.
Yeah. Um, and it is, and the reason why I was asking was um I've seen quite a bit of queues there on an evening and that
Yeah,
evening, and
yeah, yeah.
it's pantomime season, it's
Hmm.
Christmas shopping, it's the Phoenix window, it's all of these things, and that boosts the economy. However, the challenges. Um, I was talking to an insolvency practitioner yesterday, um, at school parents' evening, and I was like, "Oh, how's it going?" He's going, "No, we've been quite busy, steady, and we're forecasting being quite busy next year. It doesn't necessarily anticipate any huge peak." Um, and I then said, "Well, what about this triple whammy of taxes, right?" And it was it's it his response was, "Yeah, it will have an impact, um, but it'll probably lead to job losses as opposed to businesses closing. Businesses will contract, and it'll do the absolute opposite of what the policy's trying to do.
What is it
Um,
you're trying to do?
Raise money to invest in sort of those economically inactive and those that aren't working and things like that. Um, Jeff, people who have other responsibilities and to get more people off. the state benefits and things like that. So they're looking to try and invest and obviously raise taxes. Um, the thing that other area that I found really interesting was the fact that um, I think there was up to like 2 million people had signed this petition. So this pub landlord down south
Hmm.
started a petition asking for a general election.
Yeah, I've seen.
Um, and and that was quite interesting. You know, the fact that um, someone had um,
But what's that gonna mean? You had the general election.
nothing, but it just
You
it
had
highlights. No, 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 it won't lead to anything. Um,
you've had the general election. You had the opportunity.
um,
This time it was a landslide. Apparently, the turnout was really, really low, which they don't tell you. But he's in there, and at the end of the day, what I don't understand, um, how come, regardless of who's in power, the taxation situation is just a constant upward spiral, and it doesn't make any sense at all. What do they think, that people have got more and more money? Let's just keep on taking more and more money off the people. Well, how when does that stop? What, to the point when we've got nothing? You're going to 100% tax us because you seem to be putting the taxes up every single year, which just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And it's got to like such ridiculous levels, Amar. It's not like I was reading up on taxation when they put the tax up by 1% in 1775 or something. There was like riots on the streets. The farmers were all out there like rioting against the government because they're taking 1% taxes. And now, the taxes are 50%, and we're sat there having our latte frappuccino without even oblivious to everything.
it's here's a story for you, right? And it's a bit of a private, personal story. But my wife comes from a working class family, and my wife's parents pretty much devoted their lives working. Mum in a gyro bank and father as a mechanic to purely pay for their kids to go to school, privately educated. You
Mm-hmm.
know, the rest of the family hadn't, wasn't something, they've come from a council estate and everything else. And they only worked to pay for their kids' education. And our guest will be coming on in a minute, Mr. Karl Beckett. We'll get him on. And then we decided that we wanted to pay, and my wife exclusively works, every single penny of her wage goes towards education. Now, all of a sudden, it's like you're going to have to pay 20% extra.
Yeah.
And Jeff, how many? We've done some analysis and research, in particular the Asian community, right? The Asian community, there's lots of people who work in restaurants, who work in takeaways. They just work, drive. They are doctors. They whatever, and they only work to put their kids through education,
Yeah.
right? Because of the importance of education, and it's shocking, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It's shocking that um, that we're introducing all of these things. Anyway, let's get our next superstar guest on, Mr. Karl Beckett. And let's Karl is actually he's a supporter of business. He coaches, he organizes, and he's even got his own podcast as well that he kindly interrogated me on. Good morning, Karl.
Good morning, Ammar.
Good morning,
Excuse me.
Paul.
Good morning. Good morning.
Lovely to have you on. Sorry, we were just ranting and raving about everything and anything, Karl, as business owners, as entrepreneurs, as people who pay a lot of tax.
Yes.
So we'll probably talk about death and taxes, a little bit about football, a little bit about religion, and a little bit about politics.
Oh, great. A great combination.
Well, we won't, because I think they're all of the things that you're not meant to talk about, aren't
Oh,
they?
you
So,
know? Oh, I thought you
well,
were
I
going to
don't
ask
know.
me about the farmers and the tax.
Let's free flow. So thank you ever so much, Carl. Welcome to our weekly show right here on Show Business Spice FM, and I'm joined by Jaff. He's going to introduce himself in a minute, but let's start by you seeing who you are, what you do, and why you do it.
Thank you. So, my name's Karl Beckett. I have a business called Karl Beckett Business Walks, and I take leaders out into the countryside, into the fells, the coastlines, the woods, to help them become more effective. In essence, better teams, better decision making, just more effective leadership. And I've been doing the business for about 9 years now, and I take them also through my Resilience Valley model. And I started my life as a chart surveyor. Started my life as a shepherd, and I've been in the countryside all my life, and I've spent a lot of time working in the countryside. Started as a chart surveyor, then moved into the family business, and I think over those times, I've just developed a lot of resilience. I've supported my teams. I had 500 staff under me, and I've really always enjoyed that supportive nature of work and collaboration, working together. And it's something that I find the countryside gives you that freedom, that self-expression to think creatively. I'm, quite a creative thinker. And so that environment that I work in allows me to do that. So, and in essence, I help leaders become more effective, they grow, they find more clarity and meaning in their workplace. So, and also in their personal lives.
Brilliant. Thank you for that, Carl. And Jaff, introduce yourself. You need to get out into the countryside, don't you?
Well, I'm just thinking that if that's where all the creativity comes from, I think I've spent all of my life, contrary to yourself, Carl. I'm a local restaurateur based in Newcastle upon Tyne, and actually, all of my businesses are situated in the city centre, in and around the bright lights, and they're kind of walking distance from each other. One of them being in Jesmond, which is only about a mile away from the city centre. So equally, I guess we've tried to be creative and be innovative, all of which we've done by having a presence within the city centre. So there you go, complete contrast to where you are. And but I think it's interesting, isn't it? It's such a parity from your story and my story.
Yeah, I think though it's about the environment as well though. I'm obviously really comfortable in the countryside, but I used to do a lot of buildings. We used to construct and design, and it's creating that environment where you really thrive. I think that's the key.
You see, for ourselves, our business model, we actually our desire is to be in the city centre because we feel we're in hospitality. We feel all the best operators are in the city centre because that's where you expect them to be in most cities. Whether it be, if you go to London, you would always want to check out Mayfair or Soho because you think, yeah, there's some great places that are going to be dotted around, but there would have to be something. The best of the best would have to be in those areas, and equally in Newcastle city centre, there would have to be some of the best restaurants in the city centre to reflect the city. So we've always felt that we were more challenged in the city centre, in our sector for sure, and that's why we would want to be there.
Brilliant. I was just making a couple of notes there because I like to make notes. And I don't think, Jaff, that Carl's saying it's one or the other. I think, and I'm really interested in, and I might even convince Jaff and I, Carl, to come out on one of your missions, and get out there because you're absolutely right. having someone support business leaders getting out into the fresh air, getting away from that constant on that exists, whether that's city centre or whether that's digitally or whether it's a bit of both, is absolutely critical. So what got you into this, Carl? Tell us a little bit more. So 9 years you've been doing this.
Yes.
Why?
Well,
What,
I
what
started
was
my
the
life.
catalyst?
Well, I think I started my life as a shepherd, believe it or not, because training as a chartered surveyor, they used to say to us that you're going to be dealing with farmers and talking to them, so must need to know what it's like to be in their shoes, and that's why I often talk about clients. Go and be in the shoes of your customers and see what it's really like for them. So I was out, working out in the countryside, and I spent all my life, involved with the countryside in one shape or form or the other, working in it. And so when I left the family firm, a number of my staff said, "Have you thought about being a coach?" And I thought, no, at the time. And after retraining, and I just sort of naturally progressed to taking people outdoors. It wasn't I suddenly didn't think I have a light bulb moment. I naturally took people outdoors, and resilience was a big key theme. So, that is something that is just sort of naturally. I think sometimes in life we want to always see, feel, and purpose is really important. You need to know where your North Star is. But sometimes it's just moving forward and one step after the other, and suddenly the doors open. And that's what it was like for me.
Can I ask you, Carl? You used the word resilience quite a few times.
Mm.
Now, is resilience, is that something that's intrinsic, or is that something that you can actually work on an individual to teach them resilience?
Oh, I'm a massive believer on the latter. It's something that you can, something you develop, and over time, learn those skills. And often they're going through sometimes, well, in my case, it's going through sometimes that adversity, and you've become stronger for it. And when I used to be running up on the fells in the Pennines, you need that resilience to get up the next hill. And you have to find it from within yourself. And sometimes, when I left the family firm, I had to pick myself up off the floor. It was a real low moment for me, and I had to just learn those skills. So I think it's definitely the latter. You can definitely develop it.
Interesting, because I thought really part of it was really how you built with it. Because I feel that today, resilience, especially amongst the younger group, they are not resilient as how I guess the teams used to be.
Yes, and I hear that back a lot from clients actually, and I think sometimes we've got to be careful we don't sort of just pigeonhole the youth as this area, because I've met some very resilient individuals and some lovely people. And I think where one of my big, I have a resilience family model which I take people through, and it has 7 tools, if you like, if you work your way through it, and it's all practical stuff and it works. But really underneath all of that, it's getting out your comfort zone. I always say getting out your comfort zone in something that you are, quite good at or strong at, or, it's something, you wouldn't say, let's go and swim the channel if you weren't a good swimmer or you had never swum before. So get out your comfort zone. And I think with youth that I think there's too much done for them. And if I went back to my father's generation, they really had to just survive on their own. They didn't have any protection or support. They really had to survive. And I think there's a little bit of that in society, that we try and do too much for them, support them too much. And sometimes, well, I know you develop resilience by getting out your comfort zone.
I think you're absolutely right, Carl. There is this significant ease or convenience that people generally have become accustomed to, and that includes, and in particular, young people. You're equally right in pointing out we shouldn't be pigeonholing young people or pretty much everyone. Um, the general challenge is as young people get more isolated and insulated, they don't have those opportunities to develop resilience and those problem solving skills as well. I think that's a real issue for young people and people more broadly. It's everything's done digitally now. Everything's convenient. You don't need to go out anywhere. You don't need to do anything. You don't even need to go out to work.
Yeah.
Yeah. In the good old days, that was what you'd done, and even playing out, you'd go out in the morning, and you'd come back late afternoon, and get a clip and where you been, and I've been shouting you for all day, and it was like that was just normal, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. The word you touched on there was isolation, because I think we have become, as a society, I think, a little bit more isolated. I mean, I know one of the things that's big for you is inclusivity, so support, and I've always been a massive fan of community. Work, whatever your community is, whether it's in the city centre of Newcastle or whether it's out where I live, out in the Northumberland, really put your effort and time into your community. And I think young people, particularly, and also, as you said, adults, we just get isolated in this world, and everything's done, as you say, digitally. And I think also it's about you those conversations you have, those experiences you have when you're meeting face to face. I'm not so sure you can easily gain that from elsewhere. You learn so much from those interactions, and also you just have that. I've always been a big believer, all therapy is good, whether that's going for a walk, going for a pint with your friends, or going for a tea and a coffee, a meal, or for a massage, or whatever it is. But what gets you back off that floor is your friends and your family around you, that support system. So, if you're not, if you've got yourself into an isolated position, life can be a bit tough.
No, very much so. So, Carl, I'm really interested because I think this is a critical conversation. Just picked up on this resilience part within your introduction, but you also talked about like a framework or something like that. Have you
Yeah,
developed
no,
a?
it's just a framework which I've created, like a valley. So you go from one end of the valley across to the other side.
Right.
And so you start on that side where you've had that, whether it's trauma or often it can be a lot of change in life. And sometimes, for some people, it can be you be thinking, why they got so upset? That's nothing to be bothered about. But actually, it's affected them quite considerably. So whatever that change or events happen in your life, and then it's how you get across that valley to the other side. And there's the Kubler-Ross curve, which is a similar sort of process where you go from one side to the other. Is all about those emotions when you're going through grief, and so you go through those emotions through change, and it's just about using the tools that I've sort of developed over the years to get through that. And that's from looking after yourself physically. Often when people go through change or stress, if you like, the first things that go is sleep, water, food, exercise. They can be some of the biggest wins overnight that can really help you be more resilient. And support system, lots of talking about reflection, facing the brutal facts, and hope and purpose is such a big puller that people that can pull you out of the bottom of the valley, if you like, or get you from one side of the cross to the other. Having that, as in business, both of you, that having that hope and that purpose is so critical. But I often talk about, if you have that hope and purpose, if you don't take any action, it's just a dream. And so my last tool on my valley, if you like, is the commitment to action, and just take that one single step forward. and it will it will snowball so fast forward. You will just move so fast forward if you can just think about what's that first step I need to take. And so that's in the general nature of it anyway.
So action, commitment,
Yeah.
having purpose,
Yes.
um, are some of the things that you've talked about. Carl, if Jaff and I is it a group? Like, do you work
So I
with a
do
group of
groups.
ladies?
Yeah, I'm actually going to be doing a walking retreat in North Wales in the spring. But
Right.
generally, I do groups up in the coast, up in Northumberland, or in the Pennines. Um, and so, but I do a lot of one-to-one mentoring and
Right.
coaching. So, and that's usually half a day out for individuals. So it's there's
Does
two.
that look like, Carl? As in, if
So
Jaff and I say, right, we want to come and get out and get away,
yes.
and and you'll then take us somewhere out into the
Yeah,
countryside,
so if it
and
was individuals, like if I was just taking one of you out, which is a lot of my work, I would
yeah,
take you out to a place that's probably no longer than an hour from your work or home. And then what we
right,
would do is we would go out for a walk for 2 hours, 2.5 hours. It would be the walk would be positioned on what I thought your capability was, what you thought were easy to handle. And then we go back to a cafe or hotel and really thrash out a sort of action plan, a learnings of what we've learned out in that environment. And that is really as important as the walk actually. And generally they're usually half a day. If you were doing a group and I was taking a group of a business out, what I'd be doing is I'd be taking out the group to a sort of indoor hall. Usually, I use a lot of village halls actually, and small hotels out in the countryside. And what we would do is we would do a sort of leadership and resilience workshop, some interactive stuff, and then I generally ask them to think about a problem they've got within the business that we can group as a group work through those issues. So I sort of group facilitate that. And that is really, really rewarding because they leave with sort of an action plan and a learnings, just as they do with the one-to-one work. And then we all go for a walk as a group, and it's a great way of bonding people. I find
right.
it's very powerful.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Carl, for coming on our radio show right here on Spice FM.
No,
If
thank
someone
you.
wants to find out a little bit more around getting out or getting some plans or
Yeah,
just getting better for the new year, because that's what people are starting to think about,
yes.
where would they find out more about
So
you?
I've got a website of www.carl with a K Beckett with two T's.co.uk. So if they look for carlbeckett.co.uk, they can find me on there.
Brilliant. And
But
in the
but
last 30 seconds, what would you be doing for your leadership plans for 2025?
I think I think a bit of reflection about where where we're going to be going, what we're going to be achieving, and I think also and a touch of what you've always said about collaborating. So I think I'm going to be collaborating a little bit more in my industry because I think that's important, and I think likewise for others, and I think just getting also to really talk to your customers and find out what their pains and problems are.
Brilliant. Thank you ever
Thank
so
you for
much.
joining me.
Thank you, Carl.